Hi, everybody. I just wanted to hop in quick before today's episode to remind you that we are doing a giveaway of 6 months of Realms Plus subscription. All you gotta do is subscribe and leave a comment. The more comments, the more chances you have to win. See our community tab for the full rules and conditions of the contest. And with that, let's get on with today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Shifted Reality, Season 2, Episode 31. Even though I say we are done with the shoreline, there's still so many little things to do. Like, we never extended our pier down to the surface of the water. Slowly but surely, we're kind of pushing back and opening up our river a little bit to make it more accessible for the ships that we want to say are sailing by. But there's, still more to do here. We could definitely get more back out in that way to tool in the hillside a bit more, and this hill here could probably be cut back. And we need to do something so that those guys stop, falling off this wall. Villagers are almost impossible to work with, but that was kind of the challenge that we set for ourselves with this. And, well, villagers will do what villagers do in the end. And meanwhile, we got to keep working our way up the mountain, which this area here now needs to be connected with that area up there. Because I'll show you, as far as the village is concerned, this path, this road, goes here, and it's supposed to connect up here. But how is that path supposed to go from down there to up here so it can connect from this building to that building? And let's not to forget, technically the path also goes up there before it turns and comes back down to there. None of which line up in any kind of sense that is easy to work with. Is this where my villager is connecting to that he's refusing to... You know what? I want to take this out. I'll see if now he takes it into the workstation that's actually in the house he lives in. But yes, and then that path is supposed to connect up to here, which now, as you can see, we are reaching the top of the mountain and finally getting to the snow line. That was the whole basis of calling our base the Haven Cove. What are we building? Where are we going to end up? What is our priorities? And without a solid plan, let's start by connecting this path and this road to up there where it's supposed to go. Let's get to it. And like that, we now have a path that goes up. It was too high of a slope to try and get something that went straight up to the top. So we had to loop and double back and bring this around. Now at the moment, it goes underground, and we have considered the possibility of digging this out so it can be fully exposed. But we haven't decided firmly if that is or is not what I want to do yet. So we're going to wait on that a little bit. Kind of keep it where it's at right now. And that brings us back up to this part, which we then went ahead and put in some stairs to bring down. This one, however, was able to just be a nice, easy slope up and down. Not too tall, not too steep. Maybe a little bit steeper than what I typically like to have for stairs, but it's workable at the moment. And of course, we worked on this during a live stream. Again, if you want to see more or have a discussion about my in-process thoughts, it's probably a little bit better if you jump onto a live stream and hit me up in the chat just to ask questions and maybe we can have a little dialogue back and forth to give tips and tricks of how I approach these things, because I'm not always the greatest at doing it when I'm trying to think of why I'm doing it, but I can certainly talk specifically about different aspects. Anyway, now to move on to our next aspect, we have a couple projects. I'm kind of thinking about this little villager house here, how it's kind of out of place and by itself, what with the overhang that's there. And I might be able to come up with something up there. But then I also have this half tower that we were kind of utilizing to just use up some space. And it's kind of funny because this little half tower started off at the bottom just because I didn't have any usable space between the wall and the lower step. So we just put it up there, and it's now extended all the way up there. And we replaced the mud brick wall here with some tough brick there just to match it all up at the top. And that was just to complete the pattern that was on the edge here. And this tough brick wall wasn't originally there on this side, nor was it there on this side. But when I looked at it, I realized it should be there. So we put that in, and then we can continue on this circular tower pattern all the way around over to here. There might be some cutbacks into the hillside past this wall here that my son put in, establishing the location and the border of our base. I'm not really sure how high I need to go with it, though. That's going to be another question we'll have to deal with. But this is going to come together. Why does it always seem I have more projects than I have time for? On the two projects we decided I'm going to start with what should hopefully be the more interesting one. I hope. We are going to upgrade this basic villager house into something that looks a lot better, a lot more me, and solve this underhang problem. And for that, we kind of dug out underneath just to get a good view of what is going on down there. I just need to know basically where we're going to overlap the above area with the below area so I can make appropriate planning for this. And then in addition to that is one of the basic elements that you want to break when building, and this little observatory definitely does not follow that. I mean, aside from the fact that the dome roof doesn't necessarily look the greatest. Domes are difficult, for me at least. I've never been particularly good at them. But on top of that, the overall shape is very simple. It's a symmetrical circle with nothing else about it. Now, that is what most villager houses is a very symmetrical square and not much else going on. So we're going to break that up, and we're going to change that. We're going to extend it out and move the foundation out this way, about an equal distance for here, basically doubling the width. But we're not going to double the length. We're going to put a little cutout point into this length. Now what we do with this space out here, that remains to be seen, but this needs to be separate from the main structure. We can maybe put supporting structures here depending on what we come up with, but this will remain separate, and that will give us more unique shapes. The asymmetry is what is going to create our uniqueness. Similar when we put in this little part out here that juts out, again we have asymmetry. It's not lined up properly with the house as a whole, and this will give you a better overall design and more life to it, more feels to how it comes out. So you'll see how this comes, and we will keep going with this. And as we look at building this up, we are literally building up. We started down at the bottom, making what more or less is a walkout basement. and we'll get to the upper levels here shortly. But after we put in what is very obviously the natural or man-made bricks, I wanted to try and give it a little bit more of a natural state to the area. So we started adding in these different levels of slabs and full blocks of cobblestone and tuff. And that's just to try and give a natural rock formation look. And I think this kind of works. And over here you can see that I didn't want to repeat more of those big retaining walls. So I went ahead and put in more of those natural block look in order to try and capture that environment, that this is something that is just here. And as we go further up the mountain, I'm going to try and capture more of this natural feel. Editor Minovate here. This is the episode of Lost Audio Files, and so I keep having to re-record these after the fact. I still have the footage, but not the what I was saying at the time, which is might be a little bit disconcerting. But it was either that or tear down the progress and rebuild it, which seems counterintuitive. So what we have here is we went ahead and we're continuing to work on enhancing our vanilla villager house, and we're just kind of creating a expansion. So here we took out the inner walls and expanded it out to each of the sides, and I decided to utilize the mud brick because I thought it blended fairly well between the contrasting cobblestone and the light brown of the stripped oak. And I definitely need to learn how this will all play out with the new vibrant visuals, because whilst I'm putting in some windows, I don't actually know how that will look with the new shaders that the vibrant visuals offer. Hopefully it provides a decent amount of light and shadow to pass through to keep the village house looking interesting, whether you have the vibrant visuals on or off. And here you can see how the village house is coming together. We now have a standing up into the sky off of the cliff face, and it's starting to create a sense of completion. We just need to put in some additional walls, some floors and ceilings, and keep working. Since dark oak saplings can't actually grow unless they're in groups of 4, singular ones, such as what we have underneath our little bush here, actually make for really nice decorative elements. And well, if you really get down there and look closely, it doesn't fully connect, but from a general angles, it looks just fine and looks like a little sturdy base that leads up into the leaves, and it can really be blended with any variety of leaf blocks. In this case we chose the flowering azalea, but you can use anything for that effect, and it will look like a nice little addition to your garden and manicured bushes. And in some ways it can look better than the dead sapling or even the azalea bush itself, while that does match up really nicely with the edges of the leaf blocks. It doesn't necessarily blend as well with different varieties of leaf blocks, but more importantly, it doesn't have as much visibility underneath, which kind of, if you look at bushes in the real life, they're usually not like really tight to the ground. They usually have a more prominent stalk that you can see. And the other thing that is nice about this interior, consider this like main room that is mostly still defined by the vanilla texture, with a solid block wall around the stores and more or less the solid block walls around the stairs going up to the second level. But if you look this way, from this room to the next, where we use the wall blocks instead, look at how much bigger that room just feels. It feels like there's like a whole extra, block worth of space in there, even though it's still a 9x9 space. Utilizing the shift from a solid block room to a wall block room can really enhance your interior space, just to make certain areas feel larger and more accessible. Every time without fail, I decide I want to put crenellations on top of a build, and there is something off on the count that makes it hard to make it consistent. I mean, take a look at this. This is like almost perfectly spaced for just individual little ones. Until you get to the spot. And I have to do a double. Either all single or all double. Is that ever too much to ask? But I guess if I really wanted that, I'd have to pre-plan my build. So let's take a look at how our upgraded house has gone. I ignore the fact that the path blocks are gone because creepers came along. There's none around right now, right? But yeah, now we still have a little bit of a nice sense of a small, cozy vanilla cottage house. The original layout is still there, maybe somewhat enhanced with like the upside down stairs there. The general enhancement vibe, I think, came out pretty well. What do you think of our new little house? Let us know in the comments down below. Well, now that we have this house built, we still have quite a bit of a problem with mobs spawning over there next to our pigs. Including that creeper there. Can I get over from here? Yeah, die creeper. Ow. Ow. And mob spawning up there. As well as mob spawning over there. So several areas that still need some additional light and mob proofing in order to prevent us from dying or losing progress due to these creepers exploding. Adding some bushes of different varieties really helps establish a more lived in and finished feel for it. And stacking different types of bushes really kind of helps out bring out more of a natural color to it. And if you are stacking different types of leaf blocks, I do recommend putting the darker ones on the bottom. And it just gives the sense that, you know, those are a little bit darker because they're shaded from the light a little bit from the leaves above them. Just a way to give a little bit more life and nature to your builds. And it really helps pop the overall structure. And even hanging them down off the edge will help establish a bit of an overgrown look where it's like, you can't really get down there to trim that. That's going to overgrow a little bit. But it also prevents a little natural block from villagers that might otherwise wander around to spots that you don't want them to wander to. And let's get to bed before we have more creepers blowing us up. So I've added in some archways to try and make this space look a little more structurally sound. And we're going to put in some vines here and there just to help with the overall natural feel of it. These will kind of grow and spread how vines do, so we'll have to come back and take a look to make sure they had it go overboard on us. And the overall goal is to make this feel a little bit more structurally sound, which you really can't do too well with long hanging bits of dirt. The only thing that I'm trying to think of is there an easier way to do a transition between the brown dirt and the gray stone and gray cobblestone? That I'm not really sure on. But otherwise, we just put in a few decorative elements, this single column of cobblestone wall, the inset bit of cobblestone wall that just allows a little bit more ambience of this was kind of decorated in depth. Not everything was here exactly how it was built, just things change over time. And this space right here, I'm actually thinking I want to utilize this just to make a little bit of a let's throw a little bit of a shed in here. You know, we have all this everything has been this like houses and temples and workshops, but we haven't really put in just decorative buildings such as storage sheds. So we're gonna quickly make a change on that and get that into here. Sometimes you say you're going to do something and then you just start working on it and it comes together so seamlessly. I really wish I could spend more time explaining my thought process and how I do this, but really that would just end up making each of these episodes like multiple hours long if I explained every little detail I did. And that's kind of where the nice thing about the live streams have been is when I do get an engagement from the chat, I am able to discuss that in a little bit more detail as to how I think about these things and how I come about them, and create this nice little utility shed here. You know, a little bit of storage, a little bit of utility. Creates a nice decorative building, while it's also adding some additional storage to the area. And not that, you know, probably going to use too much storage in the area, but you know, it's there if we need it. And it creates, and I like the look of it. So if you want to talk with me more about ideas on how these things come together, check out the live streams when I have them. That's the best time to really have that kind of discussion. We have more than enough time to work it out and talk it out. What are you doing down here? You're my farmer. You're supposed to be up in the farming district. Not on that level, but on that level way up there. What are you doing down in the fishing docks? How'd you even get down here? Where's my happy guest? Come on, we gotta move a guy. There you are. Come here. Yeah, we gotta move a guy. Come on. Yeah, over here. Oops. I apparently knocked a fisherman into the water. Fisherman can swim, right? Hey, come back here. Come here. You need to take this boat. Excuse me. Right, let's get this guy back where he belongs. Alright, you, I don't care where you go. You, I don't care where you go. You're just a novice. Don't care about your trades. You guys, however, stay in the farms. Jeez. Give them a nice farmhouse and home. And how do they repay you? They wander off. In the end, we didn't sell a full shulker to Wasay. The overall total ended up to be about 7 diamonds per stack, which kind of undermines the existing market by about 2 diamonds per stack of iron blocks, but you know, it's alright. We're kind of late game anyway when it comes to tracking how much, you know, diamonds people are buying and selling. I'm just going to get a bit more stone here, and then we are going to get started on a live stream where we will decide something we're going to do with this tower. I initially put in this tower here mainly because there was no room to really build anything else, and given the slope of the mountain, I didn't want to terraform to make room. But now we're kind of stuck. I always said it was future Minivate's problem. Well, the future is now. So let's make this into a proper tower, and I still don't know what I'm going to use it for. Okay, I honestly can't determine if Real used the explosives I gave him, or if he just happened to have come across a large underground cave shortly after the area that he was at when we were looking at his progress here. I do certainly hope he can, get going pretty well on this, though. I am curious as to what he needed the hole for to begin with. Anyway, as to my own ambitions, I honestly can't tell you if building up the tower made my situation better or worse. So the tower does make it look like all that down below did serve a purpose. And while we gathered the materials off camera, which admittedly was mostly just putting it together into a box that was local, most of the build-up was done on a live stream. And if you would like to come by and say hi, do come by and say hi on my live streams. That would be great. But in the meantime, I still need to decide what purpose this tower is going to serve. I still don't really have a solution or purpose for that. It currently is just there. And whilst the repeating block palette does work at a general level, I'm not fully sold on the overall size or scale level of it working. Like up close, like up here, yeah, I get this. This works. A little further away, the different shades does blend pretty well, but that mid depth, I'm not sure on. It might be a little too plain. We may need to do something a bit more with this. And there were some good suggestions in our live stream that we may come back to, but I think that might be an issue for our next episode. And once again, this has been a Shifted Reality. My name is Minovate, and I thank you for tuning in. If you've gotten this far, as always, like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below for our giveaway of 6 months Realm Plus subscription. And as always, have a good one, everyone. Bye.